Judith chapter 4. Israel prepares for war. When the Israelites who lived in Judea heard of all that Holofernes, the ranking general of Nebuchadnezzar king of the Assyrians, had done to the nations, and how he had looted all their shrines and utterly destroyed them, they were in very great fear of him, and greatly alarmed for Jerusalem and the temple of the Lord, their God. Now, they had only recently returned from exile, and all the people of Judea were just now reunited, and the vessels, the altar, and the temple had been purified from profanation. So they sent word to the whole region of Samaria, to Kona, Beth-horon, Belman, and Jericho, to Kobah and Isara, and to the valley of Salem. The people there secured all the high hilltops, fortified the villages on them, and since their fields had recently been harvested, stored up provisions in preparation for war. Joachim, who was high priest in Jerusalem in those days, wrote to the inhabitants of Betheliah and Betomesthaim, which is opposite Esdraelon, facing the plain near Dothan, and instructed them to keep firm hold of the mountain passes, since these offered access to Judea. It would be easy to stop those advancing, as the approach was only wide enough for two at a time. The Israelites carried out the orders given them by Joachim, the high priest, and the senate of the whole people of Israel, in session in Jerusalem. Israel at prayer. All the men of Israel cried to God with great fervor and humbled themselves. They, along with their wives and children and domestic animals, every resident alien, hired worker, and purchased slave, girded themselves with sackcloth. And all the Israelite men, women, and children who lived in Jerusalem fell prostrate in front of the temple and sprinkled ashes on their heads, spreading out their sackcloth before the Lord. The altar, too, they draped in sackcloth, and with one accord they cried out fervently to the God of Israel not to allow their children to be seized, their wives to be taken captive, the cities of their inheritance to be ruined, or the sanctuary to be profaned and mocked for the nations to gloat over. The Lord heard their cry and saw their distress. The people continued fasting for many days throughout Judea and before the sanctuary of the Lord Almighty in Jerusalem. Also girded with sackcloth, Joachim, the high priest, and all the priests in attendance before the Lord, and those who ministered to the Lord offered the daily burnt offering, the votive offerings, and the voluntary offerings of the people. With ashes upon their turbans, they cried to the Lord with all their strength to look with favor on the whole house of Israel.